The war had consumed 17 star systems in just 8 cycles. Ambassador Vexthari of the Interstellar Confederacy stood before the holographic display, watching another world fall to the Krell Dominion. His silver skin rippled with distress as red markers spread across the map like a disease. The Confederacy had fought honorably, followed every protocol, respected every tradition of warfare that had kept the galaxy civilized for millennia, and they were losing badly. How long until they reach our core worlds? Vexthari asked his military advisor, Commander Zefker, a towering being from the warrior planet of Draxos. 6 months at their current pace, Zefker replied, his forearms crossed in frustration. Maybe less. They fight with perfect coordination. Every battle follows predictable patterns. We counter, they adapt, and somehow they always stay 3 moves ahead. Vexthari turned away from the display. The Krell were machines of war, not in body, but in mind. Their entire civilization operated like a single vast computer, calculating probabilities and executing strategies with mathematical precision. Against such an enemy, the Confederacy's honor-bound warfare seemed almost quaint. There must be something we haven't tried, Vexthari said quietly. His science officer, a floating jellyfish-like creature named Lysses, pulsed with cautious light. There is one option. The survey team found it 3 cycles ago, but we dismissed it as too primitive to matter. Show me. Lysses projected a new image. A blue and green planet spinning peacefully in a distant arm of the galaxy. Designation: Earth. Class M world. Single sentient species. They call themselves humans. Technology level is barely space-worthy. They have only just begun exploring their own star system. Why would primitives help us? Zefker growled. Because, Lysses continued, her bioluminescence flickering with something like worry. Their history is unlike anything in our databases. In the last 1,000 cycles alone, they have fought over 15,000 documented wars among themselves. They possess nuclear weapons capable of destroying their own planet, yet somehow have not used them in over 80 cycles. Their military doctrine contains strategies we have no classification for. Vexthari studied the planet. Something about it called to him. Perhaps it was desperation. Perhaps it was instinct. Send a diplomatic vessel. Make contact. We have nothing left to lose. First contact 3 weeks later. Vexthari stood in a building humans called the United Nations Headquarters. The structure was primitive by galactic standards, but there was something solid about it, something enduring. The human leaders had assembled quickly once they understood the situation. No lengthy debates, no councils that lasted days. They simply gathered and listened. Captain Sarah Chun of the United Earth Defense Force sat across from him. She was small by most species standards, barely reaching 6 feet tall, with dark eyes that seemed to calculate everything they saw. Her uniform was simple, marked with symbols Vexthari's translator, identified as rank insignia and unit patches. Let me make sure I understand, Captain Chun said, her voice calm and measured. You have an interstellar government that has been at war for 2 years, with an enemy that fights using pure mathematics and logic. You follow rules of engagement that both sides respect. And you are losing. That is correct, Vexthari replied. And you came to Earth, a planet you consider primitive, because you are desperate. Vexthari's skin flushed purple with embarrassment. I would not phrase it quite so bluntly, but yes. We need help. Any help? Captain Chun leaned back in her chair. Around the table, other human military leaders exchanged glances. Something passed between them, some unspoken communication that Vexthari's translator could not decipher. How many soldiers can you take? Chun asked. We would be grateful for any forces you could spare. Perhaps a battalion? 500 soldiers would. We can have 20,000 combat-ready troops prepared for deployment in 72 hours, Chun interrupted. Special Forces, Marines, Army Rangers, and support personnel. If you need more, we can mobilize additional divisions within 2 weeks. Vexthari felt his respiratory system flutter. 20,000? In 3 days? How is that possible? A human general named Rodriguez spoke up. His face was weathered and scarred. Captain, we have fought wars for our entire existence. We maintain standing militaries, specifically for moments like this. What we need to know is, what are the rules? Rules? Vexthari pulled up the sacred war protocols on his data tablet. Of course, all civilized warfare follows the protocols. Combat occurs during designated battle windows. Both sides withdraw during rest periods. Engagements happen in predetermined zones. Civilian areas are off limits. Supply lines cannot be attacked outside of battle zones. Challenges must be issued before direct combat. Psychological manipulation is forbidden. Chemical and biological weapons are banned. Deception is considered dishonorable. Surprise attacks violate. Stop. Captain Sean held up her hand. Her expression had changed. The other humans around the table had gone very still. Ambassador, does the enemy follow these rules? Of course. All species honor the protocols. They have prevented total war for over 10,000 years. And you are losing while following. These rules? Yes, but that does not mean we can simply abandon them. They are what separates civilized beings from barbarians. Captain Chun stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the city. When she turned back, her eyes held something that made Vextharius' instincts scream warnings he did not understand. Ambassador Vexthari, I need to be very clear about something. If Earth sends soldiers, they will fight to win, not to follow protocols, not to maintain honor, to win. Do you understand the difference? I am not certain I do. General Rodriguez leaned forward. Let me explain it differently. In human history, we have a saying, all is fair in love and war. It means that when survival is at stake, rules become suggestions. Honor becomes a luxury. We will use every advantage, every trick, every method necessary to defeat your enemy. Asterisk, but the protocols will get us killed, Captain Shun said flatly. Ambassador, you came to Earth because you are desperate, because your way is not working. If you want our help, you get our methods. We will not fight with one hand tied behind our backs, while our enemy has both hands free. Vexthari felt something cold settle in his core. He looked at Commander Zefkor, who had been silent throughout the exchange. The Draxian warrior met his gaze and gave a small nod. What exactly are you proposing? Vexthari asked quietly. Captain Shun returned to her seat. We study your enemy. We learn their patterns. Then we break those patterns in ways they cannot predict or calculate. We will not attack civilians, and we will not use weapons of mass destruction without authorization. But everything else is on the table. This sounds like chaos. It sounds like war, Chun corrected. Real war, the kind humanity has been fighting for thousands of years. You have been playing a strategic game with agreed-upon rules. We are offering to show you what happens when someone stops playing and starts fighting for survival. The room fell silent. Vexthari's translator struggled with some of the concepts. The words translated, but the meaning behind them felt alien and dangerous. He thought about the 17 fallen systems, the billions of lives lost, the slow, inevitable march of defeat. How quickly can your forces be ready? He asked. Captain Chun smiled. It was not a happy expression. We have been ready our entire lives, Ambassador. We just needed someone to point us at the enemy. The journey begins 4 days later. 20,000 human soldiers stood in the main hangar of the Confederacy flagship, Eternal Peace. Vexthari watched them assemble with growing unease. They moved with frightening efficiency, organizing equipment and establishing routines in an unfamiliar environment without apparent difficulty. Commander Zefkar approached him, his 4 eyes fixed on the humans. They are different from any species I have encountered. How so? Watch their eyes. They are all forward-facing. Predator eyes. Most species have peripheral vision for detecting threats. Humans have binocular vision for tracking prey. And look at their teeth when they smile. Those are designed for tearing meat. Vexthari had noticed. Every human smile showed teeth. Among most species, showing teeth was a threat display. Humans did it casually. Constantly. Captain Shun found them on the observation deck. She carried a rifle casually over one shoulder, as comfortable with the weapon as Vexthari was with his data tablet. Your ship is impressive, she said. Very peaceful. Comfortable. Not designed for extended combat operations. The Eternal Peace is a flagship, Vexthari explained. It represents our commitment to civilization and order. It is a target, Chun said bluntly. The name alone tells enemies you do not expect serious conflict. Your defenses are adequate, but predictable. Your layout prioritizes comfort over tactical efficiency. We have survived many battles in this vessel. You have survived battles fought by your rules. Things are about to change, Ambassador. Chun looked out at the stars. How long until we reach the front lines? 5 days at maximum speed. Good. That gives us time to train your people on how humans fight. Commander Zefkar, your warriors are impressive, but they fight like they are performing a ritual. We need them to fight like they are trying to survive. Zefkar's skin plates shifted, a sign of interest. What do you propose? Joint training exercises. Your soldiers and mine working together. We teach them to be unpredictable, to think like humans. Is that even possible? Captain Shun's smile showed all her teeth. We will find out. Because in 5 days, we reach the Krell Dominion. And they are about to learn that the galaxy has new players who do not know the rules. Or rather, we know them. We just do not care. As Vexthari watched the human captain walk away, he felt the weight of his decision. He had brought something new into this war. Something the galaxy had never seen before. He hoped it would be enough to save them. He also hoped they could control it. The briefing room aboard the Eternal Peace was packed with both human and Confederacy officers. Captain Sarah Chun stood at the holographic display, studying the battle data from the past 2 years. Behind her, Ambassador Vexthari prepared to explain the Sacred War protocols to the human forces. He had done this briefing hundreds of times for new Confederacy species joining the war effort. It always went the same way: acknowledgement, acceptance, an integration into the existing command structure. This time felt different. The Sacred War protocols were established 10,000 cycles ago. Vexthari began. His voice translated into perfect English. They were created after the burning wars nearly destroyed half the galaxy. Every civilized species agreed that warfare must have limits, or we would annihilate ourselves. He activated the display, showing a timeline of galactic history. The protocols dictate when battles occur, where they can take place, and what methods are acceptable. Combat happens during designated 12-hour windows. Both sides then observe an 8-hour rest period. This prevents exhaustion and allows for medical treatment and resupply. Lieutenant Marcus Webb, one of Chun's Special Forces officers, raised his hand. He was a lean man with scars on his knuckles and a reputation for asking uncomfortable questions. What happens during those 8 hours? Both sides rest. Tend to their wounded. No combat operations occur. And the enemy knows exactly when you are resting? Of course. It is in the protocols. Both sides honor the rest period. Webb exchanged glances with the other humans. Several were taking notes. Others had expressions that Vexthari's cultural database identified as skepticism. Continue, Captain Chun said neutrally. Vexthari pulled up another section. Battles occur in predetermined zones marked by both sides. These zones are chosen to minimize collateral damage and allow for controlled engagement. Supply lines outside these zones are protected. Medical facilities are off limits. Civilian populations must not be threatened or used as strategic assets. Let me understand this, said Major Patricia Okonkwo, Chun's second in command. Her Nigerian accent was crisp and clear. You tell the enemy where you will fight, when you will fight, and when you will be vulnerable. You protect their supplies and their reinforcements as long as they stay outside the battle zone. Yes, this ensures warfare remains civilized. It ensures warfare remains predictable. Major Okonkwo corrected. Ambassador, with respect, you have turned war into a scheduled sporting event. Vexthari felt his skin flush with indignation. We have prevented billions of deaths. The old ways led to extinction-level conflicts. The protocols save lives. Captain Chun stepped forward. Ambassador, show us a typical Krell engagement. Actual battle footage. Vexthari pulled up recordings from the Battle of Helios Station 3 months prior. The hologram showed Confederacy forces assembled in formation, waiting at the edge of a designated combat zone. At precisely the scheduled time, Krell ships emerged from the opposite side. Both fleets advanced in organized patterns, exchanging fire according to calculated trajectories. The battle lasted exactly 12 hours. When the timer expired, both sides withdrew simultaneously. The Confederacy had lost 3 ships. The Krell had lost 2. Helios Station remained contested. This happens every time? Lieutenant Webb asked. With minor variations, yes. The Krell are highly logical. They fight with mathematical precision. And you fight the same way, which means they can predict everything you will do, Chun observed. They know your formations, your tactics, your timing. You are not fighting a war. You are solving a math problem, and they are better at math than you are. The room fell silent. Vexthari felt something uncomfortable twist in his digestive system. Put that way, their situation sounded even more hopeless than he had realized. What do you propose? Commander Zefker asked from his position near the back. The Draxian warrior had been watching the humans carefully. Captain Chun looked at her officers. We propose showing the Krell what happens when someone changes the equation. Lieutenant Webb briefed them on Operation Phantom Strike. Breaking the pattern, Lieutenant Webb stood and activated his own datapad, linking it to the holographic display. 3 days from now, we will reach the Outer Rim engagement zone. According to your protocols, there is a battle scheduled in 72 hours. The Krell will arrive at the designated time, in the designated location, expecting you to do the same. That is correct, Vexthari confirmed. We are not going to be there. The Confederacy officers erupted in confusion. Vexthari held up a hand for silence. Explain. Asterisk. The Krell calculate based on patterns. They know you will follow the protocols. So we will not. Instead of meeting them at the scheduled battle, we will strike their supply depot in the Gamma sector, 48 hours before the scheduled engagement. That is outside the combat zone, a Confederacy tactical officer protested. Supply lines are protected by the protocols. Your supply lines are protected, Major Okonkwo said. The Krell's supply lines are about to become very vulnerable. They will not expect an attack because they have never experienced one. Their defenses will be minimal because they have never needed to defend those positions. Vexthari felt his respiratory system constrict. This is a violation of everything we believe in. It is dishonorable. It is effective, Captain Chun said flatly. Ambassador, the Krell are winning because they are better at following rules than you are. The only way to beat them is to stop playing by those rules. They are machines of pure logic. Logic breaks when faced with the illogical. You want us to become barbarians. Chun's expression hardened. I want you to survive. There is no honor in extinction. The Krell are not showing you mercy. They are following the protocols because it helps them win efficiently. The moment those protocols stop serving them, they will abandon them too. We are just doing it first. Commander Zefkor stood, his forearms spread in a gesture of consideration. Captain Shun, if we do this, we cannot undo it. The entire galactic order is built on the sacred protocols. Breaking them will have consequences beyond this war. The entire galactic order is about to be conquered by the Krell Dominion, Shun countered. Would you prefer to maintain your honor while watching your civilization burn? Or would you prefer to win and deal with the diplomatic consequences after? The room erupted in heated debate. Confederacy officers argued about tradition, honor, and the meaning of civilization. Human officers sat quietly, waiting. They had already made their decision. This was not their galaxy to rule. They were simply offering tools. Finally, Vexthari raised his hand for silence. If we do this, if we violate the protocols, we become no better than the barbarian species we have spent millennia trying to eliminate. Captain Shun met his gaze. No, Ambassador. You become survivors. And maybe, just maybe, you become warriors. There is a difference between being civilized and being weak. Your protocols confuse the two. Vexthari looked around the room. He saw fear in the eyes of his fellow Confederacy members. Fear of change. Fear of dishonor. But beneath that, he saw something else. A tiny spark of hope. How certain are you that this will work? He asked quietly. Nothing in war is certain, Shun replied. But I can guarantee that doing the same thing you have been doing will definitely fail. At least this way, you have a chance. The decision hung in the air like a physical weight. Vexthari thought about the 17 fallen systems. The billions dead. The slow march toward extinction. He thought about the protocols, ancient and revered, designed to prevent the very catastrophe they were now facing. Perhaps the protocols had done their job too well. Perhaps they had made the Confederacy forget how to truly fight for survival. Proceed with your plan, Vexthari said, his voice barely above a whisper. May the ancestors forgive us. The first strike. 43 hours before the scheduled battle, 8 human teams deployed from stealth shuttles near the Krell Supply Depot in Gamma Sector. The depot was a massive orbital facility containing enough fuel, ammunition, and repair materials to sustain Krell operations for 6 months. It was defended by minimal forces because it had never been threatened before. The protocols protected it. Sergeant James Rodriguez led Team 3 through the dark, using hand signals instead of communications. His team moved like shadows, utilizing tactics developed over centuries of human warfare. They used the station's own sensor blind spots against it, approached from angles the Krell had never considered, and carried weapons that would not register on standard scans. The Krell defenders were machines of logic. They patrolled in predictable patterns because unpredictability was inefficient. They monitored expected approach vectors because monitoring everywhere required too many resources. They operated on the assumption that no one would violate the protocols. They were wrong. Team 3 reached the fuel storage section without being detected. Rodriguez placed shaped charges on key support structures, charges designed by human engineers who understood that sometimes the best weapon was gravity and pressure differentials. The other 7 teams did the same throughout the facility. All teams report? Captain Shun's voice came through the secure channel. One by one, the teams confirmed. Charges placed. Timers set. Ready for extraction. You have 90 seconds to clear the blast radius, Chun said. Mark. The teams moved with practiced efficiency. They had drilled this operation, 100 times during the 5-day journey. Every second counted. Every movement was calculated not by computers, but by human instinct and experience. 80 seconds later, the teams were clear. 10 seconds after that, the Gamma Sector Supply Depot ceased to exist. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. Fuel ignited in a chain reaction that tore through the station's structure. Secondary explosions rippled outward as ammunition stores cooked off. Within 5 minutes, nothing remained but expanding debris and confused Krell transmissions. The Krell React-In, the vast computational network that served as the Krell Dominion's collective consciousness. Alarms triggered across 1,000 nodes simultaneously. The destruction of Gamma Depot created an equation that did not balance. The attack had occurred outside of scheduled combat windows, outside designated zones, using methods that violated 7 different protocols. The Krell Overmind processed the data, running probability calculations. The result was unprecedented, insufficient data for prediction, for a species built on logic and mathematics. This was the equivalent of existential horror. The Overmind reallocated resources, running deeper analysis. The attack pattern matched no known Confederacy tactics. The timing made no strategic sense within the protocol framework. The methods violated fundamental assumptions about how civilized warfare operated. A new variable had entered the equation. The Overmind tagged it as unknown factor, alpha, and began recalculating all strategic projections. Every projection returned the same result: increased uncertainty. For the Krell, uncertainty was more dangerous than any weapon. The Galaxy Watch's news of the Gamma Depot attack spread through the Confederacy like wildfire. Within hours, every species in the Alliance knew that humans had violated the sacred protocols. Reactions ranged from shock to horror to grudging admiration. On the Eternal Peace, Ambassador Vexthari watched the tactical display as Krell forces scrambled to respond. Their movements were erratic, uncertain. They were repositioning assets to defend supply lines that had never needed defense before. They were pulling forces from offensive operations to guard their flanks. They were afraid. "Your strike worked," Vexthari admitted to Captain Chun. "The Krell are confused. Their attack patterns have become defensive." "This is just the beginning," Chun replied. She pulled up a star chart showing dozens of Krell positions. "They are recalculating, trying to predict our next move. The problem is, they cannot predict what we will do because we have not decided yet. Human warfare is not about following a plan perfectly. It is about adapting faster than the enemy can respond. What is your next move?" Chun smiled that predatory human smile. "I am not going to tell you, Ambassador. Not because I do not trust you, but because if you do not know, the Krell cannot extract it from your communications or predict it from your behavior. The less anyone knows, the better." Commander Zefkur entered the command center, his forearms carrying data tablets. "Captain, I have been studying your military history. Your species has fought wars using deception, ambush, and psychological manipulation for thousands of years. You call it asymmetric warfare. That is correct. These tactics are considered dishonorable by every Confederacy species. Also correct. They are highly effective." Chun nodded slowly. "Honor is a luxury of the strong, Commander. When you are weak, survival requires different tools. Humanity spent most of its history as the underdog in one conflict or another. We learned to win by being smarter, meaner, and more unpredictable than our enemies." Zefkar's skin plates shifted in a pattern Vexthari recognized as deep thought. "You are teaching us to think like predators instead of prey. I am teaching you to survive. Whether that makes you predators or just desperate prey and learn to bite back, that is for you to decide." The tactical display chimed. A Krell fleet was approaching the Outer Rim engagement zone for the scheduled battle. They were 3 hours early, arriving in full battle formation, expecting an ambush. "They are adapting," Major Okonkwo observed. "They expect us to break the protocols, so they are arriving early to counter our advantage." "Let them wait," Sean said. "We are not going to be there either." "Lieutenant Webb, is Team 7 in position at the mining colony?" "Yes, Captain." "Ready to proceed. Execute Operation Whisper. Show the Krell what happens when they leave their rear undefended." As Webb relayed orders, Vexthari felt something shift in his understanding. The humans were not just breaking rules. They were weaponizing the enemy's expectations. The Krell had spent 2 years learning Confederacy patterns. Now those patterns were not just useless, they were liabilities. "Captain Chun," Vexthari said quietly, "what have we unleashed?" Chun turned to him, and for a moment her expression softened. "Hope, Ambassador. We have unleashed hope. The Krell are machines of certainty. We are teaching them doubt. And doubt, in a logical mind, is more destructive than any bomb." On the tactical display, Krell forces waited in the empty outer rim engagement zone, their perfect formations slowly dissolving into confused repositioning as they realized no one was coming. Somewhere in the depths of the Krell overmind, error messages began to accumulate. The calculations were no longer working. The patterns were breaking down. The enemy had stopped being predictable. For a species built on logic, this was the beginning of their nightmare. And for humanity, it was just another day at war. The end asterisk.